When life finally makes sense. How clarity, pain, and purpose quietly shape a meaningful life. Introduction. There comes a moment in life that doesn't arrive with fireworks. No applause. No dramatic breakthrough. Just a quiet realization. You wake up one day and think, ah, so this is why. Not everything is solved. Not all wounds are healed. But suddenly, life begins to make sense. This book is for those who have felt lost even while doing everything right. For those who carry pain they don't always talk about. For those who are tired of chasing success without meaning. This is not a book that promises instant happiness. It is an invitation to understand how clarity, pain, and purpose quietly shape a meaningful life, over time, with patience, and with honesty. Chapter 1. Confusion is not failure. Confusion is often misunderstood. We think being confused means we made the wrong choices, that we are behind, or that others figured life out while we did not. But confusion is not failure. Confusion is transition. It happens when the old version of you no longer fits, but the new version has not fully arrived yet. You are not lost because you are weak. You feel lost because you are growing. Life rarely gives clarity first. It gives confusion, then understanding. A true story. When confusion looks like failure. Before the world knew her name, J.K. Rowling was living in deep confusion. She was a single mother, unemployed, living on welfare, struggling with depression, and rejected by multiple publishers. From the outside, her life looked like a series of wrong turns. Later, she reflected that failure stripped away everything that was not essential, leaving only what truly mattered. That confusing season did not mean her life was over. It meant her life was realigning. Confusion was not failure. It was preparation. Another story. When being fired was actually growth. One of the most confusing moments in Steve Jobs' life came when he was removed from the company he helped build. The experience was painful, embarrassing, and disorienting. He had no clear direction. Years later, he said that being fired was one of the best things that ever happened to him. That confusion allowed him to grow, refine his vision, and return stronger. What felt like failure at the time revealed itself as growth. The most common story, ordinary lives. Not every meaningful story is famous. Sometimes confusion looks like losing a job, questioning a career, or feeling unsure even after doing everything right. Later, many people say the same quiet sentence, "Now I understand why that had to happen." Clarity almost never arrives during confusion. It arrives after reflection. What if confusion is not something to escape, but something to listen to? Short prayer. God, help me trust that confusion is not punishment, but preparation. Give me patience in this in-between season. Journal prompts. What parts of my life feel confusing right now? What might this confusion be preparing me for? Chapter 2. Pain is a teacher, not an enemy. No one asks for pain. Yet pain arrives anyway. And when it does, our first instinct is to avoid it, to numb it, to escape it, or to rush past it. But pain has a voice. Pain slows you down when you are moving in the wrong direction. Pain exposes what comfort tries to hide. Pain removes illusions. Pain does not arrive to destroy us. It arrives to reveal what truly matters, and who we are capable of becoming. A true story. Learning to live with pain. Nick Vujicic was born without arms and legs. Growing up, he experienced bullying, isolation, and deep depression. There were moments when he did not want to continue living. Instead of asking why this happened to him, he began asking what his pain could teach him. That shift changed everything. Today, he speaks to millions, using the very pain that once made him feel worthless as a source of strength and hope. Another story. Turning wounds into wisdom. Before becoming a global media icon, Oprah Winfrey lived through severe pain. She grew up in poverty, experienced abuse, and lost a child. Rather than hiding these experiences, she allowed them to shape her empathy. Her pain became the source of her compassion and authenticity. The most common story. Quiet pain. Most pain does not make headlines. It looks like working hard without recognition, carrying responsibility without appreciation, or sacrificing quietly. Years later, many realize that pain taught them resilience, patience, and depth. Not all pain breaks people. Some pain builds character. Reflection. What if the pain you are carrying is not meant to stop you, but to shape you? Short prayer. God, give meaning to the pain I do not understand. Turn what hurt me into wisdom that helps me live better and love deeper. Journal prompts. What pain has changed the way I see life? What strengths did I discover because of it? Chapter 3. Clarity arrives slowly. Clarity is often misunderstood. We expect it to arrive suddenly, like a breakthrough, a sign, or a moment where everything finally makes sense. But clarity does not work that way. Clarity does not rush. It arrives when experience has done its work. Most of the time, clarity is quiet. It forms slowly, through mistakes, reflection, and time. You do not wake up one day knowing everything. You wake up understanding one thing more than yesterday. And that is enough. A true story, when clarity comes late, but right on time. For many years, Morgan Freeman lived without certainty. He worked different jobs and acted with little recognition. It was only later in life that his career aligned with his voice and presence. Those years were not delays, they were preparation. Clarity arrived when he was ready. Another story, when persistence outlasts confusion. Colonel Sanders spent most of his life uncertain. He failed at multiple businesses and faced countless rejections. Even in his 60s, success seemed far away. But persistence carried him forward. When clarity arrived, it was undeniable. The most common story, slow clarity in ordinary lives. Many people feel lost in their 20s and unsure in their 30s, only to find calm and clarity later in life. Experience softens, teaches, and shapes understanding over time. Reflection. What if clarity is not something to chase, but something to grow into? Short prayer. God, help me trust the timing of my life. Teach me patience while clarity forms quietly within me. Journal prompts. What has become clearer in my life over time? What am I learning now that I did not understand before? Chapter 4. The pressure to have it all figured out. There is an invisible pressure many people carry, the pressure to know exactly where life is going, to have a clear plan, and to be certain early. We grow up believing that by a certain age, we should already have life figured out. But most people don't. Most people don't have life figured out. They are simply brave enough to keep going without certainty. Clarity is often confused with confidence. But confidence does not always come from knowing. Sometimes it comes from continuing anyway. A true story, starting when others think it's too late. For years, Vera Wang followed a path that did not fully feel like hers. She trained as a figure skater and worked as a fashion editor before designing her first wedding dress around the age of 40. What looked late to others was perfectly timed. Her earlier years quietly prepared her for what she would eventually create. Another story, moving forward without a clear plan. Before becoming a global film icon, Harrison Ford struggled as an actor and worked as a carpenter to support his family. There was no clear sign that success was coming. His breakthrough arrived not because his life was perfectly planned, but because he kept moving forward even when it was uncertain. The most common story, quiet comparison. Many people compare their lives to others and feel behind. But what we rarely see is the uncertainty behind the scenes. The pressure to have it all figured out often comes from comparison, not reality. Reflection. What if not having it all figured out is not a weakness, but part of the journey? Short prayer. God, help me release the pressure to know everything. Give me courage to keep going even when the path ahead is unclear. Journal prompts. Where do I feel pressure to have my life figured out? What would change if I allowed myself to move forward without certainty? Chapter 5. Purpose is not a job title. Many people spend their lives searching for purpose as if it is hidden inside a job title, a position, or an achievement. But purpose does not live in a title. Purpose is not found in what you do for a living, but in how you show up while living. You can live with purpose in ordinary days, unseen roles, and quiet responsibilities. A true story, purpose without a title. Mother Teresa did not begin with influence or recognition. She was a teacher, quiet and unnoticed. But she chose to serve where suffering was present. Her purpose was defined not by position, but by compassion. She showed that purpose is not about how big your work is, but how much love you put into it. Another story. Quiet impact over fame. Fred Rogers, known as Mr. Rogers, never chased authority or status. He hosted a children's television program, yet shaped the emotional lives of millions through kindness and consistency. His purpose was not loud, it was steady. The most common story. Purpose in ordinary lives. Most purpose-filled lives never make headlines. They look like parents showing up daily, employees working with integrity, and friends who listen when no one else does. There may be no applause, but there is impact. Reflection. What if your life already has purpose, and you are simply learning how to recognize it? Short prayer. God, help me stop searching for purpose in titles and positions. Teach me to live purposefully in how I show up every day. Journal prompts. Where in my life am I already living with purpose? How can I show up more intentionally in ordinary moments? Chapter 6. The day you stop running. There comes a moment in life when running becomes more exhausting than stopping. Running from the past, from mistakes, and from who you really are. At first, running feels like survival. But over time, it becomes a burden. Peace begins when you stop fighting who you are and start living with who you are. Acceptance is not giving up. It is choosing honesty over resistance. A true story. Freedom through acceptance. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. He lost time, freedom, and opportunity, yet chose acceptance and forgiveness over resentment. By accepting what could not be changed, he discovered a deeper freedom. Peace came not from revenge, but from releasing control. Another story. When you stop forcing life. Before writing Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert found herself deeply lost during a divorce. She stopped forcing answers and allowed herself to pause and listen. That acceptance opened a new direction, not because everything was fixed, but because she stopped fighting herself. The most common story. Quiet surrender. Many people experience peace when they stop resisting the past and choose acceptance over control. Not because pain disappears, but because unnecessary suffering ends. Reflection. What part of your life are you still running from? What would happen if you allowed yourself to stop? Short prayer. God, help me stop fighting who I am. Give me the courage to accept my past and live with peace in the present. Journal prompts. What am I still resisting in my life? What would change if I chose acceptance over control? Chapter 7. When life finally made sense. My story. 1 year ago, I was buried in debt. The kind of problem you cannot ignore. The kind that keeps you awake at night. The kind that makes your chest feel heavy even in silence. I was exhausted, stressed, and quietly afraid of what would happen next. I reached out to 4 people. I asked for help. I hoped, desperately, that someone would see how serious my situation was. But no one did. No one helped. Each rejection felt heavier than the last. Not just because of the money, but because of the loneliness that comes when you realize that in your hardest moment, the people you expected to lean on were not there. At that time, I felt lost. I questioned myself. I questioned my decisions. I questioned why life had brought me to that place. What that season taught me: confusion is not failure. I thought my confusion meant I had failed. But now I understand. I was not being destroyed. I was being redirected. That season of uncertainty was not the end of my story. It was the space where growth began. What that pain revealed: pain as a teacher. The stress I carried was real. The fear was real. The disappointment was real. But pain did not come to break me. It came to show me what truly mattered. It stripped away illusions and taught me humility, resilience, and the value of genuine support. What became clear over time: clarity arrives slowly. At that moment, nothing made sense. I did not understand why help did not come from the people I expected. But clarity did not arrive immediately. It arrived later, quietly, when I began to see that not all support looks the way we imagine it should. The pressure I let go of, the pressure to have it all figured out. I used to believe that I should already have everything under control, that I should not be struggling, and that I should not need help. But that season taught me something freeing. Most people do not have life figured out. They are simply brave enough to keep going without certainty. Where I found purpose. Purpose is not a job title. My worth was never in how much I earned or how stable my finances looked. My purpose was not in my position. It was in my perseverance, in choosing to keep standing even when everything felt like it was falling apart. The day I stopped running, the day you stop running. In the end, the person who helped me was not who I expected. It was my sister. Not because he had everything. Not because it was easy. But because love does not ask for recognition. That moment changed something in me. I stopped running from the reality of my situation and accepted both my limitations and the grace that came through family. When life finally made sense. Looking back now, I understand something I could not see then. Life did not abandon me. It refined me. The silence of others taught me self-reliance. The pain taught me humility. And the help that came from the one person who truly stood by me taught me what real support looks like. I no longer ask, why did this happen to me? I ask, what did this make me become? Stronger, wiser, more grateful, more human. That is when life finally made sense. Final truth. Sometimes the people you expect to save you will not. And sometimes the one who does will. Remind you what love truly means. Life does not make sense while you are surviving it. It makes sense when you look back and realize you were never alone. You were being shaped.